Welcome to my countdown of my top songs for the month of April. I'm DJ Mikey. And before we begin, make sure you click on the subscribe button below and the little notification bell next to it so you'll be sure to be notified whenever we post a new show. Also, please feel free to comment on which of these songs you're digging today. We always like to get feedback from you guys. So before we get into the top 20 songs, I'm going to do something a little bit different this month and give a shout out to my top 5 albums released this month, and then we'll get into the top 20 songs. So at number 5, we have Astari Nite, and they released a new album called Here Lies, which is a great Cure-like gloomy adventure, and the single Capulet Loves Montague is the standout track, but the album is really solid all the way through, and our reviewer Dana compared this album to The Cure meets Bowie, and I think that's a pretty fair analysis. At number 4, we have Nation of Language, which is a band that I don't really know a ton about. They had a single 2 years ago called On Division Street that was a great OMD-style synth song, and their album is out, and it's called Introduce Presence, which was just released, and that includes the track On Division Street that I mentioned and so many other great songs, and we'll be hearing more from Nation of Language later in this countdown. At number 3, we have Empathy Test, and many Strangeways followers were eagerly awaiting the release of Monsters from them, and the title track was in our last month's countdown, and now the full-length album was released, and it was well worth the wait. Monsters, the album is expertly produced and solid, really top to bottom, with very little filler. A lot of the songs, they kind of feature a sentence repeated over and over, which when done poorly, to be honest, it can be kind of annoying, but when done properly, like with Olympian from Gene, it's sure perfection, and Empathy Test does it the good way, creating memorable phrases and choruses that you're going to be repeating over and over. At number 2, we have I Break Horses, and they may very well have my favorite song of the year, and while that song, Death Engine, stands really above the rest for me, the whole album, Warnings, is loaded with great emotional songs about death and dark subjects, but it's sung so beautifully, and I might even change my mind tomorrow and make this the number 1 album of the month. But for today, the number 1 album is Architecture from IST IST, and this is a post-punk masterpiece that combines elements of Joy Division and Interpol, but it's not really a cheap copycat. The songs are amazing, and each of you probably have a different favorite off of the album. That's how many good tracks there are to choose from. So there you have it. From an album perspective, that's my top 5, so give those a little more thorough of a listen. And now, on to the DJ Mikey's singles chart. Let's dive into the top 20. And coming in at number 20, we have Control Room, and they're a pretty cool new band out of Mississippi who have a synth and post-punk hybrid sound, kind of similar to Actors, and their new album is called Scenery, which is available on Bandcamp. And I don't really know too much about these guys, so I'm just going to cut the cheddar on this one, and let's just have a listen. This is Out of Your System from Control Room. This isn't something new. But the days don't last around too. Never get out of your system. At number 19, we have Badly Drawn Boy with Is This a Dream off their new album Banana Skin Shoes. And if I'm being honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Badly Drawn Boy. I don't dislike them. It just generally doesn't move me that much. But when I heard this track, though, I was immediately drawn in with the Happy Monday style vibe to it. And this track, Is This a Dream, is their first song in 7 years. And the description of the song is, quote, a deliberately cartoonesque poke in the eye to those in whom we place trust, yet instead supply a constant barrage of misinformation followed by bad decisions. Does that sound familiar? A little too familiar, I think, but let's have a listen anyways. This is This a Dream from Badly Drawn Boy at 19.
Welcome to the tragedy. It's not the way it's supposed to be. I know, now I'm seeing things. Saw something moving under your skin. You can talk to animals, do little or do nothing at all. I'm a melted snowman. Try to crack the codes, they all came back wrong. Is this a dream?
Sacred Bones Records has put out a compilation called What Is This That Stands Before Me? And it consists of all covers of Black Sabbath songs performed by the artist on their label to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Black Sabbath's self-titled album. And on this compilation is a take on the song Changes done by Zola Jesus. And last year, Zola Jesus actually put out a live version of the song on social media, which she claimed had the video quality of a snuff film. There's no video this time around, though, but this piano performance is a bit haunting and mesmerizing at the same time. So let's have a listen to Changes from Zola Jesus, coming in at number 18. Club International is the latest project from New York musician John Eatherly, who was previously in a band called Public Access TV. And the story behind this is that he was dabbling with music in his East Village basement studio apartment, and there was a nightclub built directly on top of him, and the energy and the vibe from the club started to influence the music that he was recording, and the result is this, the debut single put out by Italians Do It Better. And this isn't going to be the first track we hear off of that label in this countdown. But musically, this has an epic M83 sound to it. So let's have a listen to Crush from Club International at number 17.
You got me feeling in 1,000 ways. Deep down, heavy in a blue pill, dazed for your love. For your love.
At number 16, we have the post-punk gothic mope artist Astari Nite, who have released a new album called Hair Lies. And they kind of have a sound of if The Cure, at their maximum level of depression, wrote songs for David Bowie, if you can imagine that. And the result is really fantastic. In a previous countdown, we highlighted the single Capulet Loves Montague. And this month, the album track Gloomy Witch got some remix treatment from Twin Tribes. And that was a post-punk combination that we couldn't resist. So here it is, the Twin Tribes remix of Gloomy Witch by Astari Nite at number 16.
You left me lonely pictures of me, of you and me. Softly now, windows. Maybe this life never ends. I'm unholy sacrament.
She Passed Away is a Turkish post-punk band that has become quite popular among Strangeways followers. And last year they released a full-length album called Disco Anxiet that many of you liked quite a bit. And this month they released a remix album called X, which features 22 remixes of tracks spanning the last decade of music from the band. And the artist doing the remixes is an impressive list indeed. It includes The Soft Moon, Front 242, Lebanon Hanover, Tobias Bernstrup, Clan of Zymox, and a remix of this track, Durdu Dunya, remixed by Boy Harsher. So this is a pretty cool album full of darkness. Let's have a listen to the Boy Harsher remix from She Passed Away. California darkwave band Vandal Moon are back with their new album Black Kiss, which is a concept album about a futuristic love story of two androids escaping enslavement that have to do some unthinkable things to find freedom. Okay. The band is inspired by post-punk and darkwave from the 80s, and it shows. This track features contributions from the modern synth band FM Attack, which adds a modern retro vibe to an otherwise early Cure-sounding track. So let's have a listen. This is Hurt from Vandal Moon, coming in at 14. At number 13, we have The Street, which is a project from UK singer Mike Skinner, who has returned from a long hiatus to collaborate with Tame Impala for the first single from an upcoming mixtape. And I'm not really exactly sure what they mean by a mixtape, but it looks to be a collection of collaborations called None of Us Are Getting Out of This Alive. The new single, they like long titles there. The new single is called Call My Phone Thinking I'm Doing Nothing Better, and that features a video demonstrating social distancing with Skinner from The Streets traveling to remote locations, contrasted with Kevin Parker from Tame Impala sequestered in his Los Angeles home. I'm a big fan of the rap style of The Streets, and this song echoes some of the same vibes as their early work, so let's have a listen. Again, this is called Call My Phone Thinking I'm Doing Nothing Better, and it's from The Streets with Tame Impala, coming in at number 13.
You call and call my phone thinking I'm doing nothing better. I'm just waiting for it to stop so I can get back to it.
Gonna call you back, I swear. Just as soon as I felt up to it.
At number 12, we have Daoi, Daoi Freyr. I'm quite sure I butchered the pronunciation of that name, but they are an up-and-coming Icelandic artist, and they recently submitted a song called Think About Things for the 2020 Eurovision Song Contest. And if that contest sounds familiar, we featured a track from Hooverphonic from that contest a few months ago. And Freyr collaborated with Hot Chip on a remix, which I really like. Apparently, the song has become a viral hit because of TikTok. And now I say that having no idea what that means. My age is showing because I don't know what TikTok is. And I consider myself to be somewhat tech and trend savvy, but yeah, I'm not down with the TikTok yet. I am, however, down with this remix by Hot Chip of the song Think About Things. So let's have a listen at number 12.
I know I love you. I find it out to see how you feel about me. 'Cause I don't understand you. Oh, you are yet to learn how to speak. When we first met, baby, I can't wait to know. What do you think about things? Believe it, I will always be there, so you can tell me anything and I'll listen.
At number 11, we have Swim Deep, which are an artist that appeared in my best albums list of 2019 with their album called Emerald Classics. And that's just a really loaded album with great synth and electronic tracks, including the track To Feel Good, which was my favorite off of that album. And even though the album isn't brand new, they just released a new single called Happy as Larrie, along with a video for it. And I'm glad they did because, honestly, I looked past this song the first time through I listened to the album. And I just really like the sound of this band a lot. They don't remind me of anyone in particular, which is good. They have their own sound to them. So have a listen. This is Happy as Larrie by Swim Deep, coming in at number 11.
Here you are, you've arrived. There's nothing here that you should fear, now you're alive. You don't have to spend forever, 'cause everything is gonna be okay. It's gonna make you happy, it's gonna spin you around.
At the beginning of the show, I reviewed my top 5 albums of the month, and Nation of Language made an appearance with their album Introduction Presence, and the song The Wall and I from that album is one of my favorite tracks of this month. This band hails from the Brooklyn area, which is always a hotbed for great artists. In a review for this album, Stereogum reviewed this song called The Wall and I and compared it to New Order's Age of Consent meets the LCD Sound System. And I think that's a pretty spot-on comparison. So let's see what you think. This is The Wall and I from Nation of Language coming in at number 10. Social Ambitions is a Swedish electro-pop duo that has been around since around 2005, and their new single, Do You Remember the First Time, sounds fresh out of a John Hughes movie. Much of what's written about this band is in Swedish, so I don't really have a lot of info on them. I can tell you that they have another single out this month called Every Time, which is equally as good as the one I'm going to play. The other track, Every Time, has perhaps a Duran Duran style to it, whereas this song is a bit more of a hybrid of really a bunch of retro styles. So let's see what you think about it. This is Do You Remember the First Time from Social Ambitions, coming in at number 9.
They closed down the bar just as you stole. Remember the first time and the last time we can be together. We don't care, 'cause we remember the first time.
We just heard Do You Remember the First Time, and coincidentally, this next track is titled First Time by Becca Mancari off of her new album The Greatest Part. And you may have heard this track as our Under the Radar selection in an episode of Alt Rewind earlier this month. This track has a twee sound to it that reminds me of the Shack's cover of Hooverphonics' This Strange Effect that appeared in the popular Apple commercials a few years back. And Becca is getting a lot of buzz these days for good reason. So let's have a listen to First Time at number 8.
I remember the first time my dad didn't hug me back under porch lights with my sister's old cigarettes. They say the heart grows stronger, but man, it's hard to get back on track. Hey, did you find your way out? Hey, did you find your way out?
At number 7, we have Choir Boy, and I believe this is the third appearance from Choir Boy in our monthly countdowns. And this is yet another great single off of their Gathering Swans album released earlier this month. Last month, we featured the single Toxic Eye, And this month we have the single Sweet Candy, which is a little bit more of a chill track. And I like to describe this band as a mix of 80s new romantic vocalists from bands like Spandau Ballet mixed with a modern dark label like Daoi's Records, which Choir Boys is on. And the result is a truly fresh and original sound in today's landscape. Not quite post-punk, not quite synthpop. It's Choir Boy. Let's have a listen. Sweet Candy at number 7. As mentioned in the intro, Empathy Test has finally released their album Monsters, and it's getting quite a bit of love. The title track was featured in last month's Countdown, and we want to select another track this month, even though the next single has yet to be named. A lot of you out there have selected Love Moves as their favorite from the album, and I do like that track, but I like this track, Doubts, a little bit better. And this song, Doubts, it's a great journey that keeps building and building throughout the song. And if you are not on the Empathy Test bandwagon yet, get on board, because like Choir Boy before, this band has a unique sound in a world where a lot of bands are really kind of presenting the same style. And granted, I like that style, but I also like to give a nod to originality when given the chance, and this is the chance. So here's Doubts from Empathy Test off their new album Monsters, coming in at number 6.
For all your doubts, I will be strong. The more you put me through, the more I will belong to you, and I long to be free. There is no substitute for love, no feeling. Tell me when you've had enough. There is no substitute for love, no feeling. Tell me when you've had enough.
I Break Horses are the Bella Union record label darlings led by singer Maria Linden, and this is off the Warnings album, which is another one of my top 5 of the month and likely of the year. As mentioned in the intro, Death Engine might very well be my favorite song of the year, but the album goes much deeper than that. Warnings, it's filled with dark themes about death and depression, and I'm not really quite sure I would want to be shaving to this album. This track we're going to feature, Neon Lights, sounds like one of the more upbeat ones, but even then, it's about those who feel they don't fit in and attempt to show the world that being a misfit can be a beautiful thing. Let's have a listen to Neon Lights from I Break Horses at number 5.
Because I have a lonely heart, I brought you here to be a part of. My fever hits your promised land. I'm a demon in your righteous hand. Till you see
I haven't been much of a fan of Muse since their early work, but I have always appreciated the vocals of singer Matt Bellamy, and during the COVID lockdown, he wrote a song called Tomorrow's World, which is a simple track of pianos and vocals that remind you of some of the earlier era of Muse, or maybe something like Sigur a bit. Really beautiful song. Let's have a listen. This is Tomorrow's World at number 4 from Matt Bellamy.
Your eyes see clearer, your hands can heal her.
IST IST had my favorite album of the month called Architecture, and it's just loaded with Joy Division style post-punk. There's at least 5 or 6 tracks off the album that could appear in any monthly countdown for me. But for this month, I've selected the track Silence, but it's really just all so good. Give the whole album a listen, the album Architecture. This track is Silence from IST IST, coming in at number 3.
Every swirling in the sand. What was a boy is now a man. In modern life, a modern girl. We've been deafened by the sound. We've been deafened by the sound. Silence, silence, silence. We've been deafened by the sound.
Climb is the first new track from Erica Driscoll and her band Blondfire since 2017. In the past, some of the Blondfire tracks had a metric style to them, but this track is a bit more indie pop sounding, and the track Climb was written in memory of songwriter and producer Adam Schlesinger, who passed away in April, and Adam was, of course, in the band Ivy, which Blondfire toured with in support of Ivy some years ago, and the influence is very strong in this song, as it does kind of sound like it could be an Ivy track. I really like this sound from Blondfire, and I hope we hear more like this. Let's have a listen to Climb from Blondfire, coming in at number 2.
When it's getting really hard to breathe, we can run away and make believe. There's no end, the world is in your mind, and you wanna leave it all behind. So we climb over the hills into the light, where no one can hurt you now. High over their heads into the clouds, where nobody's looking down. We climb.
At this point, Desire is probably no stranger to you. To me, they will always be the band that sings the Forever Ever song, Under Your Spell. But for their new stuff, this is the 3rd track that I featured from the Italians Do It Better artist off their forthcoming album. And they seem to be releasing a new single off of that album each week. So this is their latest. And Desire is a project from Johnny Jewel, who you are probably more familiar with for his work with Chromatics. But if I'm being honest, though, these days I might prefer Desire to Chromatics. Their songs are just a little bit more interesting to me, and I was thrilled to be able to see both bands on tour last year. But let's have a listen to my number 1 song for the month of May. This is Liquid Dreams from Desire. And that's going to do it for this month's countdown. We hope you liked our selections and maybe learned of a new artist or two while listening. We would love to hear your comments below and what you thought of some of these songs. And now we begin our quest to find the best songs from the month of June. Until then, stay safe, everybody.